Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Live Your Best Life. I'm Dr. Julia Royston. So excited always to bring you people, places, and things, resources, information, and tools to help you live, not mine, but to live your best life. And I'm super excited always to bring very professional and um, uh, informative and intellectual people with me on the show. And if they happen to be African American and male, I'm always excited about it because I think the African American male images that we see are not positive, and I wish to just knock that down all the way around. So I'm super excited to have with me Mr. James Bush, and I want him to introduce himself, tell us where he's from, and because I know my listeners are usually always looking for the person on social media, trying to follow their pages, and looking their websites up. So I don't really have to do a whole lot with bio because technology, we're not foreign to it these days. But go ahead and tell them where to find you on social media and your website, sir.
Okay, my name is James Bush. I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Tennessee. I am the host of the Mind of a Man podcast. You can find me on IG, Instagram at Mind of a Man podcast, or you can find me on IG at Bush Counseling Services, or you can look me up at on my website, bushcounselingservices.com.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so give us the backstory. First thing I gotta ask is, first off, let me, even before I ask that, say congratulations for being a licensed therapist. Thank you. I know historically the African American community has not gravitated and taken their mental health seriously, and we'll talk about that later. But thank you for being in that industry and as they say, looking like us for us, and we appreciate it, or anyone else. It's not just for us, but that really helps on that wise. So what gravitated you to being a therapist? How? What? Give us the backstory.
Because I'm nosy. Um,
You know, see, now that is too short. What? I'm nosy about
I'm
what?
just messing with
How'd
you.
you get
I'm
nosy?
just messing. I'm just messing with you.
Well, I'm gonna pull
It's
it out of you. Come on.
it's one of those situations where you work in certain fields. I tell people first off, the field chose me. I didn't really choose it. It was one of those things that I kind of begin to fall into, where you see people, they would always like come into me and we like have just great conversations. I used to sell life insurance. I was used to be a licensed insurance agent, and I wasn't really good at it. I'm going to be honest with you. And so I go into these people's houses and I didn't make a sale or anything like that. But so after I gave my little script and thing that goes along that way, I'm like, all right, what else do you want to talk about? So that's when we just started talking about their life, their husbands, their deceased, and all kinds of different stories. And I found myself very intrigued by it. And so it's one of those things where you don't see a lot of us who have those safe places to have those type of conversations, and it's so needed because for a long period of time we would go and seek the pastor, and the pastor's doing his best he can with guiding the flock, and so that's where I come in, where I'm able to have those conversations from an informed standpoint um, as pertaining to mental health, and it's from a non-judgmental area, and we just try to just get to the bottom of some issues the best we can.
And I think that is a lot of I want to say divine assignments, divine appointments, divine connections, but people are not listening. They're like, I'm just gonna keep beating my head up against this wall and keep thinking the
Yeah,
door is gonna open because if I do it harder and I go for it more, I'm thinking, what if you had kept being a life insurance agent? That would have been like your life was a total failure, you
I
know.
wouldn't have made much money.
No, but you're just in the wrong place. It's
Right,
not like you're a failure. That's not where you're called to, and that's not
right.
what you're called to do. So that's incredible. So I know over time when people keep asking you that and you keep asking you that, So how did you decide? When was the yes moment? When was that aha moment, as we say, but that yes moment that says, okay, this life insurance thing is not working for
Um, when you're in the red and you've got to figure out something to do. Also to let you know, I was a member, well, not a member, attendee of a Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee,
me.
and
Yay.
and I dropped out twice. It takes a really a lot of character to drop out of a school twice, and so I went to selling, not selling, but making metal parts for Peterbilt trucks with a bunch of felons and some of the best guys you ever meet. But I quickly realized that that was not the calling on my life, and that was not for me. So I went and got back in school, finished up my bachelor's degree, changed my majors. I was 10 credits shy of graduating with a biology degree. But I said, I'm going to change to psychology because you guys have it, and I believe I can do it. So I changed it. Then I went on, got my master's in clinical mental health counseling because it was available. It was something, it was easy to do, and got that done. And it just, everything opened up for me. My internships were there. My supervisions were there. I didn't really have to pay it where other people would have to generally, and it was just a blessing. It was like that was the paved road, and I can say it at this point in time. Before I really knew, it's funny how other people can see the gift in you before you can see the gift in you.
Come
And I
through,
had this
sir.
lady who was in my undergrad, first class in my undergrad, and she was in, I guess, counseling skills class, counseling theories. And she said, James, I want you to do something. I want you to pray about it, but I think you would be really good at this counseling thing. In my mind, I'm like, you're right, white lady. So,
Right.
and so, but she saw something in me, and to this day, I always tell that story, and I always see her, and she laughs, and I laugh because it was just something that was set up for me, and I didn't see it myself. But I'm glad that um, my creator had those different people in my life strategically to help point me in that direction. And then when I got there, I mean, it was like there was a need, and it was just overwhelming need that I was able to just walk into.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And those divine connections, how, God just opens up a door and then it's a whole door. And so I
Right,
tell people all the time, you have to be really, really careful that, I know we like to be around people that look like us, but God, he works through mysterious ways and
right.
mysterious people and
It's true.
mysterious situations. And you're like, well, who was that? And who said that? I was the same way. I never felt like I was a decent writer. Now I own two publishing companies and written 50 books, but it took a white lady, a white professor in graduate school with my second master's who said, "Yeah, Julia, you write well enough to get
Right,
a doctorate. We all need editors. You know,
right.
you just write it. Your thoughts, your organizational skills." Organizing your thoughts is really well done. You just need an editor,
Yeah,
just like we all do. We all need an editor, and then boom, the as they say, the rest is history. But sometimes you
right,
need that one person to say that one
right.
thing to open that one door. So I
That's
want
true.
you everybody to chew on that right second, and we'll be right back. And we're back, and all kinds of questions have been running through my head. I'm here with Mr. James Bush, who is a licensed therapist. I know you found him on social media, and you're finding him on his website as well. And you're going to be following his podcast. But what I do want to switch gears in kind of this season, seemingly forever season, a lifetime really of unrest with the racial injustice. What does it feel like um, being a professional Black man? I mean, I know you've talked about the different jobs, so you can, as they say, camouflage yourself in any situation, but you feel a sense of, I guess my question is, do you feel a sense of responsibility being Black, being a man, being in a very, very professional position to the next generation?
I mean, I definitely believe so because, again, there are not enough people at the table that look like us, who think like us, and talk like us. And so when you have that, there is a level of professionalism and responsibility that you carry with this. It's not one of those things where you can go and cut up and get drunk or so like that, and then get you a couple DUIs, or then have a bunch of sexual assault charges, or have all other kind of craziness that's going on in your life, because it's bigger than you. And that's one of the things that I try to remind myself, is that all of this stuff is bigger than me. I've been blessed to be in a space where I am right now, but I have to be responsible in that, and I have to do the right things that I have to do to maintain this situation, because there are people that are coming after me. And so they need to see other individuals like us, walking in professional as we are, because that gives them something to shoot for. One of the reasons why we have some of the things that we have transpiring in our communities, because there were no models. Because if you look back through the 80s and the crack epidemic, and even in that nature, a lot of us were outside of the home, that meaning fathers. We were not with our loved ones. We were not with our children. We were separated from the homes. We were in jail. We were living with grandma, or we were living with mama, or whoever. And because of that, the dysfunction has perpetuated from a generation to another generation. So there's a lot that goes along with that. Sometimes when I see young brothers or anything like that, they look at me as the older brother, not
Mhm.
necessarily the father figure, but as somewhat of a guide or anything like that. Yes, I wear baseball caps, and I like tennis shoes or anything like that. And I also like wingtips as well too. But my point is that learning how to identify and um, uh, translate, I want to say, in a sense, to them, to say, okay, you can do these things as well too. You can have yourself a comfortable life. You can have the spot where you're not necessarily worried about the next dude or the next person you meet or encounter. Your only concern is, how many taxes are this government going to take out of your
What
check?
you said, what you said. And do I have that already saved, or do I have to raise that? Hello.
And then I had to save or raise again. And so those are the things. It's just changing your mindset, changing your world scope and your worldview, and not making it seem like it's just the same old, same old. It's like mama suffered through this, daddy suffered through this, grandma suffered. And now nah, we can do better. We have
That
many opportunities right now.
exposure is so critical and so important. I've been helping people write their stories, and they just talk about, Sally came to live with us, and she's not really related to us, but she just came to live with us because something happened in her family, and so she just joined ours, and she just became our sister, but she's not our biological sister. She just came and moved in with, and I'm like, and I told them, I said, back in the 60s and 70s, Black people would just do that. Well, here, leave her here. She can just get along with my girls. I'm raising my girls. Come on in, and of course, back then they're not double checking who's supposed to be with who, and
Right.
the child is not saying anything. So that whole life and family and what that looks like in our community is really kind of expanded, because I live with Big Mama, and then we moved to Auntie's house because it's the holidays, and so we're gonna put Christmas together, and then we're gonna try to get back in Section 8, but we got off the list. And and then the issues go on and on and on, but realizing, okay, you know, there's a brother. He looks like he could have been my uncle, or my big brother, and I can look up to, is phenomenal. And we thank you, sir. We really, really, really do. You can't judge a book by its cover. You can honestly
Definitely not.
say that. Never. Okay, so I really want to ask you about this Mind of a Man podcast. How did it get started? And how often does it air?
It airs every Wednesday. I'm in my second season. I just started my season 2 on 11/4 of 20. And so, it's cathartic for me. It's the ability for me to be myself and talk to other informed, educated individuals on stuff that guys rarely ever talk about. Yeah, we may have those somewhat conversations in a barbershop, but from a professional standpoint, from an informed point of view. And I think that that is just so.
Oh, there you go. And we're back with more with Mr. James Bush. So, I'm in the media world, and he is too. So I just have to ask. So tell us about the Mind of a Man podcast. Let us know where we can find you, because I think we could do a general search on Mind of a Man. But if we want people to go directly there, what platforms are it on? Is it on?
Oh, okay. So it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, it's on Deezer, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio as well too. And so it's awesome. I mean, it's very cathartic for me. I enjoy making it. I enjoy the wonderful guests that I get to bring on. One of the reasons why I created it was to give just practical information that a lot of times brothers we don't have access to. Sometimes we're going off of myths and things along those lines that you heard uh, people in the neighborhood talk about, or people even at the water cooler discuss. Like, so I'm like, okay, so let me get an expert to kind of talk about that and discuss that. And the premise of it is that as fellas, we can talk about hoes, sex, drugs, cars, whips, and everything like that. But what about talking about legacy? What about talking about mental health, physical health? What about talking about what it's like doing the parenting plan exchange visits in front of the courthouse, or in front of the police station, or in front of the grocery store? What is that feeling like? What does it talk about depression? What depression looks like for a male of color? What does anxiety look like for a male of color? What does trauma look like in our communities? One of the things that I was asked on another show was that they said, James, do you think it's too many podcasts that are out right now? And I said, not necessarily. I said, if you go back and you look at the 1600s or so, please don't butcher me on the historical details. But when we first got on this American soil, and then also you move faster, you have slavery, you have the Reconstruction era, and then you move into the 20th century, and then you have Jim Crow, and then you have the Civil Rights era, and then you go and you move a little bit further, and then you got the taking the skilled labor out of high schools, so that
Mhm.
now that is one way that men would provide for their family members.
All
But
right. Massive
mm,
incarceration,
massive
drugs,
incarceration in the
yeah,
80s,
drugs.
the
Mhm.
the crime bill. Oh God,
Yes.
it is
Oh
so
wow.
it's
We
and
don't
so
have
you
enough
had
show for that. I don't have enough
so
show on this time. I don't have enough time
my,
on this show to talk about that. Oh.
my whole point is
Uh-huh.
that you had all these traumatic experiences take place, and I don't believe that any black person was on anyone's couch at that point in time. So all this trauma was epigenetic, which means it was passed throughout generations, and you can detect it sometimes in the genetic markers through the DNA. And we're just saying to ourselves, we need an outlet. We need to start having these conversations, because a lot of the things that we're doing is because, man, we were traumatized, we were conditioned, and we were hurting. And so now this is one of the many platforms, I believe, that is out there having these types of discussions in a technological age.
Wow, that's a mouthful, but that is truthful. That is the truth, and I think um, licensed therapists such as yourself has made it such that um, that we're able to say, okay, I think I could talk to him. And probably what happened with the life insurance thing. Okay, I think he looks like me, and even in, as they say, wingtips, I don't feel intimidated by him. He looks like me, he's got a hat like me. Okay, but what comes out of his mouth changes everything and makes me feel comfortable and makes me feel better about that. My grandfather used to call, I'm not going to no head shrinker. That's what he would call it. They just trying
Yeah,
to shrink your head. But a lot of that
right.
was because of all the abuses that have been suffered through all those ages that you talked about, of the misuse, the experimental situations, and then the horror stories, whether they were truth or whether they were myth or whether we thought it or whether it was the truth. We knew that industry, that group of people, we just really couldn't trust. So the pastor was the one we trusted the most. But the
Hmm.
pastor's like, hold on, I don't have all
Hmm.
those expertise and equipped for all of that. So
Right.
it's an interesting situation, and one that we thank you very much, sir, for for being in that industry and
Definitely.
providing the services for our community by us and for us. We're going to take another break and we'll be right back with more. And we're back with more, as you can tell by Mr. James Bush, a licensed therapist, You may want to be looking him up and go to his website and be sure that you schedule a time if you feel that you or your loved one could really benefit from his expertise. Feel free to do so. I want to switch gears because we went at the airing of this show. We're in the middle of the holiday season, the end of the year. And thank God if you're still alive and breathing, you making it through
Mhm.
2020, good, bad, or ugly.
Right.
But I really want, James, I really want you to talk a little bit about the holidays, because that's going to be another major traumatic. Okay. We're still the election, that was a lot of tension and a lot of drama. But the holidays, missing loved ones, people who've died, really, what does that look like? And no, we don't need all of it because we didn't pay to be on your couch today. And I know that that is a professional service. So if you really need
Mhm.
a session with him, be sure and schedule that and make that appointment. But in the meantime, just give us a couple little nuggets of a couple of things that you would really advise people who are really going to struggle through the holidays. How are we going to get through it? What does that look like?
Well,
What should that
I
look
think it's a number of different things that I can go to. I mean, we can go to I believe it's Kubler Ross's Stages of Grief, where it's anger, depression, denial, acceptance, bargaining, and not necessarily in that order. One of the things that, as a person who has had loss and significant loss in their lives, is you got to be able to feel your feelings. You have to be able to allow yourself to process the events and process it fully. Now, one thing is that you don't allow another individual to tell you when it's time for you or when you have finished processing each event. That is not for them to do. That is for you to do. And so when I mean processing, I mean getting down to the nitty gritty, going through the pain, the emotions, the rage, the concerns, the what ifs, the woulda, shoulda, couldas, or anything like that. But I promise you, once you allow yourself to do things along those lines, what it gives you is the opportunity to fully, investigate, okay, what happened, what's going on, and how do I move forward from this point? And you are able to see it from a different viewpoint and vantage point. But unfortunately, when we try to rush past the process, or when we don't allow ourselves to grieve loved ones and to learn the significance of what they meant to us, or the significance of what, because there are a lot of divorces that are happening around this time now, unfortunately, as well too. And so the significance of what all is taking place, then we skip over steps. And when we skip over steps, the lessons that we are to learn, we never fully recognize or get or receive. So we have to take our time through this season. And I mean, this is a season like none other. I mean, it is affecting people from Wall Street to Main Street as well too. So as far as what it means for you, feel your feelings. And also too, is that there's another thing that goes along with this. Is that it's an indicator of the individual who is inside you. Those things that you need, those things that you love, you desire, you want, those things that who make you you. That is the thing that we have to kind of reconnect with as well. And so the best thing that I can give to your audience as well is to allow yourself to go through the process, feel your feelings, and don't allow anyone, to rush your process.
Exactly, exactly. I recently did have a family member pass away with COVID, and probably the way I would have processed it and the way my other family members processed it was totally different. And
Right.
my mother being 80, she's like, well, I think they ought to be. And I said, you can think
Right.
it all you want.
Right.
But my niece, who is in her mid 20s, she's like, Granny, everybody doesn't process the same way.
Right.
Everybody doesn't process death. And of course, it right now, it's like people say, people have died before. Why does it seem like it's so overwhelming now during COVID? I said, but it's just it, yeah, people die every day, elderly, sick, they die all the time. But there is just something about this season that has really
Hmm.
overwhelmed us all with the
Yes.
grieving process,
It
with
has.
seeing other people's people die and from the outside. And I cried and I grieved and I was so sorry and I prayed. But when it was my uncle's time, it hit it, as they say, it hit different. It hit
Right.
different when it hit me and what that actually looks like. So it's really a rough time for a lot of people. So the holidays are going to look different in everybody's house. How you
Yes, it is.
celebrate, how you do it is going
Yes,
to be your best life, not mine. And but I do encourage you, if you do need to reach out to someone, that you do that, and that you don't get into a space that you can't get out of, that it's
definitely.
so dark and so down that you can't get out of. So seek professional help. That's the reason why I strive to bring people who are professional on to really give you some enlightenment and do what they say and their voice. And if you're ever seeing it, the replay via video, that you're able to see them and realize, I may want to reach out and I may want to connect that to that person to really listen to me and make sure that I'm on the path of actually living that best life and actually doing what I really need to be all that I can be. So I'm sorry, I made the commercial for you, but you are accepting new clients, yes?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
So we're gonna find Mind of a Man podcast, and give us your website one more time for people to be able to schedule a time with you or see what your availability is, etc.
Is bushcounselingservices.com. You can go to that website and you can schedule an appointment, or you can call area code 615-229-6205. Myself or my assistant will be glad to schedule an appointment with you. And I mean, as far as Mind of a Man podcast, you can find us on various multiple podcasting platforms. And you can see it. The logo is my face with a big brain in my hand. So just a baseball cap.
The Mind of a Man podcast. Be sure and get the information you need, get the help you need, and don't rely on myths and old wives' tales and what you thought they thought, and you. I don't know if you interpreted that right, but get the information that you need so that you can live your best life. Mr. James Bush, super excited to have had you on today. Thank you so much for your enlightenment and for your information, as well as knowing that there's somebody who looks like us that is out there to help us. And we appreciate you. I'm Dr. Julia Royston, praying today, tomorrow, and always that you live your best life. Be blessed.